our not so beloved former Secretary of Labor, Robert Reich. The other day, he had a tweet and it caught my eye, and I just could not let it go. Robert, what's that old saying that our parents used to say when they're about to whoop our ass? This is gonna hurt me more than it hurts you. Well, this one's not gonna really hurt me at all, but it's gonna hurt you. Robert Reich claims that 94% of teachers have to dip into their pockets to buy school supplies, and they have to do so at a time that the average Wall Street employee bonus hit $177,000 in 2022. He then says, but go on about how teachers' unions are the real problem with education in America. So let me go ahead and clear this up for you, Robert Reich. So it just so happens that I actually have all this data on why the NEA is the problem. Oh, unions can only help the due-paying members, right? Unions are the ones that make sure they're getting paid enough. Well, in 2021, the NEA paid 51 employees whose duties were 100% focused on political lobbying in support of the Democratic Party. By the way, these aren't the teachers, the due-paying members. These are the actual union employees. The total payroll for those 51 lobbying employees was $6,906,387. The average compensation for these 51 NEA employees was $135,438. 13 of them made over $200,000 that year. Their salaries are recorded under union employee disbursements, which means that the union does not actually include that in their political lobbying spending. Per the NEA report, the average teacher salary for the very same year was only $41,770. To make this worse, the average NEA employee earns around $115,000, which is 3 times more than what the average teacher that they are supposed to be representing makes. Now let's make this worse. In 2020, prior to the presidential election, the NEA reported spending $65 million in political lobbying expenses. 96% of that went to the Democratic Party. But that doesn't tell the whole story. The reality is they had disguised expenses under categories such as union administration, or they would disguise it under representational activities, which is expenditures that are supposed to be for the purpose of collective bargaining and for the purpose of benefiting the members directly, or litigation for the teachers themselves, or they would disguise these expenses in the form of contribution and grants. Now, you would think, since they have a whole section dedicated to political lobbying expenses, and they already reported $65 million worth prior to the 2020 election, that the NEA would have just put all of their political expenditures on there, right? Absolutely not. Let me give you a few examples. The first one, the NEA paid $412,371 for union administration costs, but coded as strategic planning and program development to none other than the 1630 Fund. The 1630 Fund is a well-known dark money pool for the Democratic Party. This is where George Soros and other billionaires, many of them foreign billionaires that aren't even citizens of the United States, fund money indirectly to PACs to push radical left agendas and financially support the left-wing candidates. Politico is a newspaper that is given money by the NEA, and they even wrote an article on how bad the 1630 Fund was. Number 2, the Democracy Alliance. The Democracy Alliance is like the primary funding source of the Democratic Party. In 2020, prior to the election, the NEA gave them a grant in the form of a partnership grant for $280,000. The Democracy Alliance was started by none other than George Soros himself, and it is a well-known and efficient operator when it comes to running undisclosed dark money funds. 2 of them are the Strategic Victory Fund, which we'll get to here in a second, and the 1630 Fund. The Strategic Victory Fund. This is the best one. Actually, no, it's not the best one. We'll get to the best one in a second. The NEA gave them a $17 million grant in 2020 prior to the election. The Strategic Victory Fund is a PAC that is owned and operated by the Democracy Alliance, which was again founded by George Soros, whose sole purpose that year was defeating Donald Trump in the 2020 election. You would think that a grant would be, maybe for teachers paying for school supplies for the classroom. That would be a good fucking idea, wouldn't you say? Nope. $17 million, which probably would have paid for most of the school supplies, to a PAC run by George Soros himself that was created in 2020 for the purpose of defeating Donald Trump. Let me give you 2 more, and these ones are funny as hell. The NEA gave an organization, nonprofit, that is supposed to be a nonpartisan nonprofit organization called When We All Vote. When We All Vote received $200,000 for political lobbying coded as voter registration. They also gave them another $200,000 in grants coded as nonpartisan partnership grants, as well as another $150,000 coded as strategic planning and program development. Again, supposedly a nonpartisan nonprofit. Guess who owns it? It was founded and owned and operated by none other than Michelle Obama, and she started it in 2018. It is also co-chaired by Tom Hanks, Megan Rapinoe, Steph Curry, J-Lo, and other far-left celebrities. The organization operates massive on-the-ground voter outreach campaigns attempting to register and persuade new voters to vote Democrat per its own website. They also claim to have reached, prior to the 2020 election, over 100 million prospective voters and registered almost 1 million voters. The last one, and this just shows the hypocrisy in itself, the Fair Fight Action Incorporated. The NEA gave them $225,000 in grants and contributions, coded as nonpartisan grant. Now, Fair Fight describes itself as a nonpartisan organization. However, the website reveals that it was founded by the one and only Stacey Abrams in 2018 while she herself was protesting the outcome of her recently tossed election. The organization operated massive on-the-ground voter contact campaigns in Georgia, attempting to register and persuade new voters to elect progressive candidates. Doesn't sound very fucking nonpartisan, does it? Now, in all that money, in the hundreds of millions of dollars, at what point in time, Robert Reich, will you admit that the NEA could have maybe took half of that and dispersed it back to the members that pay the fucking dues that allows the NEA to make the grants in the first place? At what point in time can the NEA actually do what it's supposed to do and do something that's in the best interest of the teachers? Oh no, can't do that because there's no money going to your friends there in Washington on the left. Sorry, Robert, that's why the NEA is the fucking problem when it comes to our teachers not making enough money and struggling to pay for their school supplies because they're being extorted and paying dues to an organization that is paying most of that to the Democratic Party. And a lot of the teachers that are paying the dues don't even support the Democratic Party. Sorry.